Okay, we are live, baby, but we got to let it breathe. But just for oh so brief a moment, and then we're going to get things cooking. It's going to be dope. It's going to be dope. Everybody's got their fingers crossed for the Nuggets. I mean, most people anyway. Not everyone, Zach, that likes the Denver Broncos cares about the Denver Nuggets, but I'm pulling for them. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Mile High Huddle podcast. I'm your host, Chad Jensen. With me is my fellow football priest and co-host. You know him, you love him, Zack Kelberman. Zach, I want to talk a little bit about what Justin Simmons said, kind of breaking his silence on the whole Vance Joseph return thing. But first, before we get to that, I wanted to pick your brain on what Alex Forsythe, Denver Broncos, seventh round center, we'll just say seventh round interior offensive lineman. You had a story on him today. What was it about?
He was asked, you did a good job transcribing the quotes, I might add, Chad. He was asked after the rookie minicamp about being a seventh round pick, and he was drafted 257 overall, and that was two spots behind Mr. Irrelevant. And this is a guy in Forsythe who some had him as a fourth round talent, fifth round, even Sean Payton, or I think it was Sean Payton, admitted that they had him as a sixth round pick in their mock simulations. He fell all the way to the end of day 3. And he said pretty bluntly, I knew it was out of my control. It was going to be what it was going to be. A lot of guys going before me just put a chip on my shoulder, but I'm in the right place and I'm really excited to be here. I couldn't be more excited. So pretty standard stuff from a guy who feels like he was slighted by 31 other teams. But based on my research into him, the tape that you watch, and just his overall character and body of work, I think they got a steal in Forsythe, who will push eventually for that starting role.
I mean, look, the Denver Broncos, well, they might have had a hunch here on what I'm about to say, but I would hazard, Zach, that most fans, when the Broncos drafted Matt Paradis in the 6th round back in 2014, they weren't expecting him to, within a year and a half's time, go on to produce like Pro Bowl level play at center. But that's what he did, and that's not to say that Alex Forsythe, is that kind of a guy. But I mean, heck, what was Tommy Nalen even drafted? He was drafted like late, dude. I got to Google this now because I always get him confused. Real quick, I gotta answer this.
Sixth round?
Was it before? Let's see. Uh, I think you're right. Hold on. No, come on. Stand by. Stand by. Uh, 7th round pick as well. Pick 218, Zach, back in 1994 draft. So, hey, you never know. That's no guarantee, obviously. It's like a quarterback getting drafted in the 6th round. Doesn't mean they're going to be the next Tom Brady. But Forsythe is a guy who did tumble. He was expected to go a little bit earlier in the draft. Not like, hey, this is a first, second round pick guy that fell to the 7th. But he was expected to be, by a lot of draftniks, Zach, like a 5th round pick, something like that. And that's where a lot of today's starting offensive linemen, that's about the spot in the draft that a lot of them are found.
And listen, like I wrote, if anything, he's serviceable. He's a very intelligent, technically sound player, not the most explosive or powerful, but he has versatility. He can play center, he can play guard. He was even playing right tackle in college as well. And to get a guy at a position of need that can enter the fray and enter the competition, I really do think they got a value. And that's been the theme, I think, so far, the early takeaway of this draft class. You got Drew Sanders a lot later than you expected him to be getting him. Same thing for JL Skinner. Same thing for Alex Forsythe. I'll say it again. When it's all said and done a couple years from now, we're going to look back on this Payton draft haul as one that's an A grade, a solid A.
David McElrath, a.k.a. the Papa Bear. Look, we're twinners today, David. You and I with our Buckham t-shirts, bro. Great to see you. Thanks for jumping into the chat and making us feel welcome right away with a super chat before we even went live. You are a prince. He says, good evening to everybody. MHH for life. Buckham, Denver Broncos for life. Love it, dude. Great to see you tonight, David. And shout out Kevin Gray jumping in early. First actual comment in the chat tonight. Mike Ronquillo jumping in early, throwing down his support. Love seeing you, as always, big dog. And we're twinners, too. Look at us. We're the three amigos. You, me, David. All right, let's go fight some crime, Great to see you, Mike. And then also, check it out. Zach, it's been a minute since we've seen David Kilgore, who's still rocking a classic YouTube profile pic. He's got the Huddle Up Podcast Football Priest hat, which is vintage, dude. That's going to be a nice little what would you call it? A nice little
Collectible.
There you go.
Memento.
Check it out. Yep. And then of course the face mask. Remember that summer when we didn't even know if there was going to be an NFL season, dude? That's what it reminds me of when I see the MHH neck gaiter / face mask. But David, great to see you, bro. So generous. Thank you. He says, do you think there could be a chance of trading for Trey Lance, Zach, from the Niners? Could be our future. I'm not sure exactly, David, where this is coming from, but what's your answer for him, Zach?
Well, I certainly remember the summer when we had to wear those neck gaiters, and I don't miss those times, but that's a whole other story. I don't know. I mean, I guess I realized because he was an intriguing prospect coming out. I was a big Trey Lance fan from what he did in college. I thought he would be a superstar with the Niners, but be realistic. You paid Russell Wilson a boatload of money. You paid Jarrett Stidham a 2-year deal, $10 million. You have Jared Guarantano. You picked up Ben DiNucci. There's no room or need on this squad for Trey Lance, who has zero body of work. I think he started one game and then he broke his leg in that one game. So intriguing on paper, but not someone the Broncos want to give up resources for to gamble on.
Honestly, I think even if it were a more plausible scenario right now, I think the Broncos are cool trying to see if they can, get a return on Russ with Sean Payton, like Dick Vermeil said. And I don't know if you saw this, David, but Dick Vermeil, Hall of Fame head coach, said that when it comes to turning the ship around with Russ, finding the right coach, he said that if Sean Payton can't do it, if Sean Payton can't resurrect Russ, then it, quote, can't be done. So I think they're hedging on that. Troy, bro, great to see you tonight. Seriously, been so consistent lately with the super chats. Much love and respect, big dog. He says, hey, guys, which free agent defensive lineman and what free agent edge would you add if you could? Scott, I'm going to go ahead and roll the dice on this. I'm going to try bringing up a list, okay, and see if we can do some scratch and sniff. And, Zach, I don't know if you have any thoughts off the top of your head here, but I'm going to pull up Spot Rack.
One guy who's, I believe Frank Clark is still out there. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's been a productive pass rusher. Justin Houston is still unsigned, as far as I know. And I know for a fact, Yannick Ngakoue, formerly of the Jaguars and the Colts, is working out, looking for a free agent deal. He's been a very productive pass rusher, a little hot and cold, but you're not necessarily leaning on him to be a starter and seeing a full complement of snaps. He'd be like a situational pass rusher, DPR, whatever you want to call him. That's one name that jumps out. Defensive line, I'd have to look at the list of free agents, but Shelby Harris still toiling away on the open market.
He is. Okay, so here we go. Let me try and blow this up a little bit here. Stand by. Okay, let me get rid of this ad. Okay, one more. Let's try one more. Two more. There we go.
Perfect.
All right, so here's free agent defensive tackles, as you mentioned, Zach. Shelby Harris. There's Michael Brocker still available, Chris Wormley and Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph, Justin Ellis, Carl Davis, Maurice Hurst. I'm just kind of going off the top names here. I mean, honestly, of the guys that are available, and Ndamukong Suh, he's reached, mercenary level in his career. Like he'll pick a team that's willing to maybe overpay slightly for, he's the missing piece for our Super Bowl defense. Like he's that guy now. Maybe, but I like Harris, still 31. But I'm not going to lie, Zach, I didn't spend a lot of time watching how he fared last year in Seattle. I don't know if you did, but if it's a Shelby Harris still comparable to the end of the 2021 season caliber Shelby Harris, then he's a guy, hey, knows, was he here? He was brought in. He was here when Vance was here, right? Mm-hmm. 2017. Yeah, so I like Shelby Harris as defensive tackle, but do any of those other names jump out to you, Zach? And we can look at edge.
I don't know too much about what Shelby did in Seattle. It can't be that much if they decided to move on from him after acquiring him in a trade. He's a guy like Courtland Sutton, I feel like got a big contract and kind of took his foot off the gas pedal. So it is what it is. Michael Brockers, though, I know he has the name value, but he was productive at least as a run stuffer. He can get after the quarterback as well. But again, as a depth piece or as a backup rotational player, whatever, Brockers, Harris, And even, I guess, if you can get his temper under control, Ndamukong and Suh would make for good add-ons.
All right, let's take a look here at edge. Update, baby. Update that bad boy. All right. So you're right about Frank Clark. So Leonard Floyd, here's the names for those listening. Still available rush linebackers. Leonard Floyd, Frank Clark. They got J.J. Watt categorized as an edge guy, but whatever. Robert Quinn, more of a hand in the dirt guy. Yannick Ngakoue, as Zach mentioned earlier. Jadeveon Clowney, another kind of mercenary class player that still has value. Don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of value. I mean, Dwight Freeney played that mercenary role the last 2-3 years of his career, dude. And, you know, you'd throw a few $1,000,000 at him, you'd get 8, 9, 10 sacks. And I'm not necessarily saying Clowney's on that level, but maybe. I mean, they even have Akeem Hicks listed here. This is more of a 3-4 defensive end. Marcus Golden, Zach, former Vance Joseph acolyte from Arizona.
Melvin Ingram right there screams out to me. Even at 34, he's productive.
Melvin Ingram. Interesting. Justin Houston, which got to remind everybody, he had 9 sacks last year, dude. So there are some names. And honestly, Zach, of the, you know, we like to call it the Evan Mathis Fund, whatever the Broncos have, I'll double check it here in a second. But if there's really something screaming that they need to add right now, to me, it's one more proven rush linebacker and one swing tackle, you know. But I think at this stage, they're going to let the chips fall and see what it looks like, and then maybe re-examine that question in training camp.
Yeah, a lot of Broncos country wanted or wants Matt Ioannidis as well. I don't know why they have him as defensive end. He's more of a tackle, but a very injury-prone player. I don't know what you'd be getting out of him if you do sign him, but there's some names out there. J.J. Watt's obviously retired. I'd be so happy with Frank Clark. I would take Ngakoue. I would take Melvin Ingram, and then I don't believe it would require more than a 1-year, a little more than, I don't know, that veteran minimum, but it wouldn't be a major financial commitment, not a lot of guaranteed money, a prove-it deal for one of these guys, a veteran that can come in and get 5, 6, 7, 8 sacks.
Okay, so I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to do one of these real quick. I'm going to drop it in here. Boom. Get rid of this tab. So here's your Denver Broncos salary cap situation currently. If you can see up here, this is per over the cap. The Broncos have $8.9 million in cap space. So that's more than enough to actually take care of the business I'm talking about, Zach, with the go find an edge rusher, go find a swing guy, because you can structure those in any way that you really want. Play a little salary cap voodoo and get things done. So there you have it. There's an answer to your question, big dog. Thank you for the super chat. Miguel, what's going on, big dog? Great to see you. Still looking dope in that Justin Simmons salute to service jersey that you won. Fair and square. Great to see you, bro. Divine Breaks. Great to see you as well. Thank you for being with us. Appreciate the support, helping us keep these lights on. He says, from what I am gathering, this draft class and what Sean Payton wants is versatile, intelligent, and mature athletes. And I'm all for it. Yeah, it really seems that way, Zach. Special emphasis on versatile and mature, because I think too, you know, intelligent obviously, but you got to be, I think, smart to also be versatile.
Yeah, I mentioned Alex Forsythe as someone who has versatility and who's intelligent. Drew Sanders, for example, can play inside or outside. Riley Moss can play either defensive back, either cornerback or safety. There's a lot of Forsythe can play tackle, guard, or center. A lot of versatility, a lot of intelligent athletes, like you mentioned, Divine Breaks, and also durable. I've talked about this before, but Sean Payton likes guys, obviously, who are available, who can help the team out and can show up every Sunday and do their job. Very Bill Belichickian in that sense. And I am all for it as well. It's a major deviation from Nathaniel Hackett.
Well said. I'm impressed. If you guys haven't watched, you can go to denverbroncos.com. Scott, I'm not sure if we put any Marvin Mims clips up on YouTube of him talking at his locker, but check our YouTube, and if not, go to denverbroncos.com, click on videos, and go find the clip of Broncos second round wide receiver Marvin Mims talking. Smart kid. We already know how much of a stud he is on the grass. Very smart kid. Looking forward to seeing what he can do. But Zach, let me let me segue a little bit here. I want to get your take on this because you did not love Vance Joseph coming back. A lot of people didn't necessarily love him coming back, even as a coordinator. There were other options out there that, like even speaking for myself, I never hated the Vance Joseph thing coming back as a defensive coordinator. If I had a bone to pick with it, it was, well, there were some other really intriguing options out there that
Right.
you're not rehashing old history, et cetera. But still, now that he's here, I don't hate it. But we're hearing Justin Simmons kind of break his silence on the VJ thing. And let me read to you what he said. This is from Parker Gabriel of the Denver Post. Now, Simmons was out over the weekend at the 3rd annual March for Peace at the Boys and Girls Club up in Montebello, and he told Parker Gabriel this, quote, "I love VJ, love him. Obviously, it was unfortunate the way the stint turned out when he was here as the head coach. I've always loved him, especially as a person. He's player-driven. He'll do anything for the guys on the team. Right now, it's been cool for me seeing, I feel like, a different version of him. When you're the head coach, you've got so much more on your plate, and you can't be around as much." And then he goes on to say, for the past few weeks, to be around him as the defensive coordinator, you can tell how much it means to him and how much he loves the players. It's been cool to reconnect, close quote. So, Zach, maybe nothing earth-shattering, but as one of the few players still on the roster who had experience playing for Vance Joseph when he was the head coach, very interesting to hear what his kind of take on this is.
It's time for everyone's favorite game show. What else is he going to say?
I knew it. I
mean, I know it's my standard response, but Simmons is very pro team, pro coach, and he's going to say the right things always. Listen, I wasn't a fan of the VJ move. I wasn't a fan of him as head coach. Nothing personal. I'd love to grab a beer with VJ or do whatever he and Johnny Bolin did in the back of that car that night. Whatever things they ingested, whatever. I just worry about his scheme and his adaptability with certain players on this defense. I watched what he did in Arizona. I like his aggressiveness, Chad, but I just wonder if he's going to be too stubborn, kind of like Vic Fangio in that sense, not really listening or being in tune with what the players need to do in order to succeed, to get the most out of his players. I understand they used 2 high-round picks on 2 pivotal front 7 guys, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins. They didn't maximize that talent under VJ. I just hope and pray round 2 is a different result.
Amen. I agree 100% in hoping that it's different this time. Gary Palmer, the GLP, the swashbuckler himself. Great to see you, big dog. He's saying, hey, Chad, Zach, and Scott, thanks for the pod on a slow time in the NFL. Go Broncos, buck 'em, MHH for life. Thank you, big dog. Really, we appreciate you. You keep showing up. We'll keep showing up. Trust. Zach, one other thing that I thought it was worth mentioning. Oh, what's playing? Something's playing. I'm hearing noise. What am I hearing? Hold on one second. Is it my phone playing something? All right. Let me go back here. He said, did Simmons, one other noteworthy thing, and it was not on the VJ topic, but rather hearing him talk about Sean Payton. Let me just read this to you real quick. I want your reaction on his initial impressions, of course, of his new head coach. Quote, Justin Simmons said, Sean's been great. Honestly, for him, he's been there and done it, and he's very confident in what he can do and how he's done it in the past. So when you have that type of confidence and you can tell that what you do works, people just follow that lead. There hasn't been that much that we've done yet. We're getting ready to start practice and all that good stuff, but I'm just excited for the season. I'm excited to get the ball rolling. I'm excited to win, closed quote. So it's that quiet confidence, maybe not so quiet in Sean Payton's case, but just that the way it translates to the players, Zach, is that it's almost a comfort, confidence. There's a comfort in it that, okay, this is a guy who, when he says, follow me, I know how to lead to the promised land. He's been there before. They're like, exactly. Okay, we trust that we can fall in line with this guy.
That's exactly what I was going to say. If it's someone like Nathaniel Hackett or a first-time coach, if it's one thing for them to bark orders and make players do certain things, but if you have already been there, if you're established, if you're one of the greatest coaches of this generation, like Sean Payton, you don't have to be loud. You don't have to be boisterous. You can lean on your laurels, and the guys in the locker room know under this tutelage, I will be successful. The team will be successful. There's no lingering questions about can he do it? Will he do it? Sean Payton has done it and done it at a high level for a very long time. So that's why he can be himself. That's why he can have a sense of humor and pick on the Ben DiNucci's of the world with the Walmart jokes, because the guys know this is going to be a successful operation with him at the helm.
Indeed. All right, I want to shift gears and come back to the topic of Denzel Mims. I keep doing that, dude. That's like the second time in the last 3 pods I thinking of Marvin Muss, and I want to say Denzel. Phil, bro, thank you. Appreciate you so much. Down in Tucson, proving Broncos country is not a geographic location. It's a state of being, baby. He's saying, good evening, Chad, Zach, and Deacon Scott. I was watching highlights of Adkins, and he reminds me of Andrew Beck. Could be used as a hybrid fullback. What are your opinions? Hashtag Buckham, hashtag MHH for life. Love that, dude. Zach, what's your answer for him?
I don't know. I don't know who's Adkins.
He's talking about Nate Adkins. He's undrafted rookie. Where is he from? South Carolina. So a lot of these a lot of these undrafted guys, you got to have taken the time to go and, watch some film on them and whatnot. And I'm with you on this, Zach. I haven't spent enough time to really speak on him with confidence. So, Phil, you officially know more about him than we do.
Well, I'll also say that they signed a fullback in Michael Burton. They have three big power backs already in Javonte, Samaje, and Tony Jones. And if you want another one, Jock Patrick can also be that fullback, halfback hybrid because he's built like a brick, what. So I guess it's one player in that running back room to keep an eye on, but I'm not keeping that stock too high.
And it does look like, they have him listed as a tight end currently on the official roster, but he's wearing a jersey number, Zach, 45. So to me, it seems like they are looking at him as potentially like a fallback option. Maybe let's see if he impresses us this summer. And if he does, we'll keep him around on the practice squad in the event that, because, Michael Burton, the fullback they signed from the Kansas City Chiefs, he's only here on a 1-year deal. So this is kind of like a little bit of a hedge, I think, Zach.
If you wanted Andrew Beck, you could have kept Andrew Beck. I think there's a reason why the original one's no longer around. I don't know, man. I feel like the tight end room is or the fullback room for that matter is pretty much entrenched right now. I maybe it's my bias, but I wouldn't give Adkins too much of a chance. Maybe the practice squad.
It would be so dope if the Nuggets take care of business and advance. I would love to see it. So yeah, Lawrence, we're filling you on sending out some good vibes for him. But let's check this out, guys. You've heard us talking about, let me blow this up a little bit. Marvin Mims. I almost just did it again. Marvin Mims. Okay, one more. There we go. Here's just a couple snippets of him talking at his locker following rookie minicamp practice last Saturday, not just barely Saturday. So, a weekend ago, but just check him out for a second. If you haven't seen this yet, we'll play like 30 seconds.
Yeah. It's a dream come true, honestly. I mean, ever since I was a little kid, just looking up, watching on TV, and just to be here, it feels surreal. But it's here. So just time to take care of business, do what I can. Yeah, for sure. It's different. I didn't really get to the playbook until I got here for camp, but just learning it. I mean, that's probably the biggest difference. Different words, different verbiage is probably the biggest thing for sure. Different verbiage, and they want you to use it, reasonably. And just getting used to it, play calling in the huddle, all that stuff. It's been different, but I've been able to catch on pretty fast. Yeah, it's been kind of like it's been weird. I'd say it didn't really sit in until I got here. Actually, start feeling it.
Okay, hold on.
Start feeling real. But oh yeah, for sure. That's a matchup.
This is the Riley Moss comment. This is worth watching. Hang tight.
I've been looking forward to since I got to camp. That's probably one of the first guys I talked to when I got here. Riley, great dude. Obviously, love him. And we've known each other for 2 days, but just great guy. Easy to have conversations with, and out there, I mean, he's gonna make sure you film on the field. I mean, even in walkthrough, he's coming up and tapping me, all that stuff. So it's great to have him out there.
Reminiscing there.
Oh yeah,
oh yeah.
I mean, I can't talk any trash on the way that game went, but Drew is an unreal athlete. I mean, he's looked like that since senior year in high school. I mean, dude's unbelievable. But just to come here, I mean, such a small world. Both of us getting drafted here. I mean, it's weird.
All right. So anyway, that just it just shows you he's a great kid, and called Drew Sanders also unbelievable, unreal. Riley Moss, if you watch any of his stuff, his locker room, interview stuff. I like it. He's got this kind of like mischievous glint to his eye at all times. And it's almost kind of like wild eyed, not quite wild eyed, but like on the verge of like, when you get the crazy eyes and the guys are like mad dogging you, it's like that. So I can imagine he's a pretty intense cat out on the grass.
Marvin Mims, man, is so well-spoken, so articulate, such an intelligent individual. What he reminds me there a lot of is Larry Fitzgerald. And if he can have half of the career like Fitz had, the Broncos will be very, very happy. And it's just nice to see the team coming together, the rookies all bonding together. Marvin Mims, though, another guy I forgot to mention earlier, versatile, can play obviously receiver, and he's going to be the kick returner and punt returner. So again, when it's all said and done, Sean Payton and George Payton got their guys, and they have one thing in common. You mentioned 2 U words, but the V word, versatility, is a big one too.
No doubt. I'm seeing here a legendary figure in our midst, none other than Mount Rushmore member of our community, Nigel Tough. What's going on, big dog? Thank you for the super. Thanks for being with us tonight. He says, hey, brothers, is the plan to start Kaden Stearns opposite of Justin Simmons? Stearns makes plays when in, but I'm not sure if that's the plan or JL Skinner opposite Simmons. What do you bros think? This is something we were kind of hazarding around last night. We were trying to sketch it out because we were talking about Kareem Jackson saying that, the catalyst to him coming back was he went and had a face-to-face with Sean Payton, and Sean Payton basically laid out what his vision would be if he returned, what his role with the team was. Now, unfortunately, in that Up and Adams podcast, Kay Adams did not ask the follow-up question that I'm aware anyway, which is, and what is that role? What is that vision specifically, Kareem? But it sounded like, interpreting context from other things he had said prior in that interview, Zach, that he's at a point in his career where he's at least open to the idea of being a depth guy, being a backup, basically. So that's a long-winded way of saying that I don't know exactly what the Broncos are planning for Simmons, starting partner at safety. If I had to put money on it today, I would guess it's Kareem Jackson starting next to him day one to open the 2023 season. But if it's not him, it's Stearns. So the only thing that could maybe get in the way of that, Zach, is Stearns' recovery from what was a pretty sketchy hip injury.
Well, I think the market speaks for itself with KJ. He's been on 1-year deals the last 3 or 4 seasons. He's getting up there in age, and he's declined really badly athletically and in coverage. I think he sees the writing on the wall, and he's just grateful to have a job under Sean Payton. I'm going to take Mike Kliss for what he said, though, and when they re-signed KJ, he said with the understanding that if Stearns, if healthy, that's the caveat there, will likely be the starter. It has to be the case, man. You've given it a run with Kareem Jackson as Simmons' partner in crime for a long time now. You're not really getting it done in the back end. You need someone a little better against the pass. And I know it's a small sample size, but Stearns is so much better, obviously, in pass coverage than KJ. If KJ wants to be like a coach on the field, a locker room glue guy, a backup, insurance, whatever, I am perfectly fine with that. But as a starter, that's a hard no for me. It's Kaden Stearns, if healthy, all the way.
And one thing I really like that's a departure, differentiates Stearns and Jackson is Stearns just has a knack for the ball, dude. He's, maybe the exposure or the sample size is too small at this stage, Zach, to really call him a ball hawk, but he's got a knack and a nose for the ball. And that production, based on what we've seen so far as a young pro, follows. Sam Bam, what's up, brother? Thank you for the super chat. So good to see you again tonight. He says, hello, Chad and Zach. Who's looking to be the front runner at kick and punt returner? Montrell Washington for both? Go Broncos. Well, you got to throw in a few other names, though. And he says, well, you answered my question, Zach. You got to throw in a few other names. So you got Montrell Washington. You got Mims, who we know the Broncos, from what they've said, love his returner. In fact, it seemed to me that just the way they talked about him, I mean, I don't know this is for a fact, but the way they talked about him post-draft, that it was like 50% of the equation of why they coveted Marvin Mims was what he can do as a returner. But then also, what's his name? Smith.
Tremont Smith.
So I don't know that we have a definitive answer quite yet, but something tells me, Zach, that Mims is going to be given the first right of refusal, so to speak. He'll have to earn it. He'll have to justify it, but I think that's how the Broncos are thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to take advantage of his game-breaking ability, his speed, his explosiveness, all of that. You do worry about putting too much of a load on him or risking him to injury, but that comes with the territory. Montreal, if he sticks around, you got to get the ball in his hands as well. I think they'll try some things out on punt returns or kick returns because he's a speed demon. And I also wouldn't write off. This is a big if. If he makes the team and if he's healthy, if only to utilize his speed. What about KJ Hamler back there on a few run backs? Maybe he can get something going. But I see Scott shaking his head. I don't see it as a possibility either. I think Marvin Mims is going to be the lead dog in that battle. But my ultimate takeaway here, what brings me the most calm, for once, since Joe DeCamillis, in fact, the special teams coordinator will have final say on the kick and punt returners, and I trust that special teams coordinator. Mike Westhoff and Ben Kotwika, the new duo in charge, they will have the right guy out there.
Is that the official pronunciation, Kotwika?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's a different name. So I'm glad to know that. And by the way, guys, just seeing some of the chat with Naj and Sam Bam here, I'm not necessarily, it's not a bold prediction per se that I think Kareem Jackson starts at strong safety, but that's my leader in the clubhouse just by virtue of his veteran standing in the locker room. But it would not shock me in any way to see Stearns step up and win that job. I don't think JL Skinner is going to have enough runway between now and when things get real to dethrone. Like if things, let's say, for example, Zach, what's up, Albert, the Mile High Dutchie? Love you, big dog. If things don't go as planned with Stearns' recovery and he's delayed a little bit, has to start on the pup or anything like that, I don't think there's enough runway for JL Skinner to prove to coaches in such a short order I'm a better option to start next to Justin Simmons. So it's really a two-dog race, in my opinion. Even though you've got PJ Locke, you've got Isang Bassi, you've got what's the kid from last year, Turner-Yell, Dellerin Turner-Yell. So there are some other factors, and you never know when a switch gets flipped in a young player, and when they turn that corner and just separate. It can happen. You know, we can't sleep on that as a possibility. But Jackson, real quick, Zach, I want to grab this from Nick Hale. Good to see you, big dog. Appreciate you. What you rocking there, dude? That looks like a Fender. That looks like from the small picture. What is that? Oh, no, wait. Well, yeah, light neck. It looks like a maple neck. So, but it kind of also looks like an SG. What is it, Nick? You've got me intrigued, dude. It's too small to make out perfectly. He says, good evening, Priest. I listened to your last pod, and you guys were talking about rookie hazing. I'm totally against it because all I want is unity, togetherness, family, one purpose, and that is to win. How do we build this togetherness and oneness? It seems so foreign these past few years. We need it like H2O. What do you think, Zach?
On a macro level, you build that togetherness and the oneness by winning. That's the ultimate thing. That's the easiest way to build team chemistry and to make everything go smoothly is to win games. But on a micro level, we mentioned it earlier a few minutes ago, having a coach like Sean Payton, not a first-timer like VJ or Vic or Nathaniel Hackett, having someone in there who's been around the block many times, won a Super Bowl, has had many winning seasons, is an offensive, I think, guru. Just having him there, bringing that stability, that will trickle on down. The problem is when you don't have that stability on top, the players are forced to be that foundation. And the players should ever be the foundation. They should rest on the foundation of the coaching staff. So let it all come together, let it marinate. But once they get off to 1-0, 2-0, 3-0 perhaps, then you will see that unity really start to take hold. You're muted.
Thank you. I said I couldn't have said it better. I'm not against some light stuff like light hazing, carrying the pads, stuff like that. I'm not against it. But I think Sean Payton is not going to allow anything that might in any way, shape, or form interrupt. Like Nick was talking about, like you were talking about, you know, being oriented towards unity and turning the ship around and let's start winning ball games again. By the way, Nick says Fender Strat. Very cool, dude. I've tried Fenders. I'm just not a Fender guy. I'm a Gibson guy. I don't like the maple neck on guitars. I don't like that longer scale, but I've tried them. I bought one or two, and they just don't stick. I don't bond with them. All right, Zach, we are at 35 minutes. So we'll probably keep it relatively brief tonight. Any burning topics that are on your mind, guys, get them in the chat. We still have a few more minutes till we dip on out of here, but yeah, and this is something I just want to grab from Michael. He's saying, look, when we talk about a deviation from Hackett's coaching, everything should be a deviation from Nathaniel Hackett. And I think that's what you're fixing to get, in all honesty. Like Nathaniel Hackett, the goofy, what's the first thing he said when Russell, for the Russell Wilson press conference, stands up there, Russell Wilson, holy, SHI, et cetera, et cetera. It's just like, man, act like you've been there before, big dog. I get it. It's like you want to, be on your level and be cool and then try to be genuine, because that's probably just who he is, what he is. But at the same time, that, looking back on it in hindsight, was yet another like warning sign, Zach, like another harbinger of what was to come, or another omen that this was a guy drastically, wildly in over his head, which is why when people start talking about, and I get it, there's a big difference. I mean, even Justin Simmons was talking about the difference between being a head coach and being a coordinator. So there's a big difference between him being an offensive coordinator now again in New York and being a head coach with regard to his scope of focus and all that and responsibilities. But that's why when people start talking about the Jets being a juggernaut this year, with now that Aaron Rodgers is there, I'm going to believe it or see it holding pattern with regard to that, just because Nathaniel Hackett, to me, I mean, let's face it, one of two coaches sent in the Super Bowl era to be fired before his first year is even in the books. So he is like literally a world-class failure relative to NFL coaching.
You ever like look at a picture from years ago, you in high school or college, and you cringe so hard looking at that, but at the time of that picture, you thought you were the coolest guy in the world? That's kind of how I view Nathaniel Hackett now. That you brought that comment up. At the time, I thought it was so awesome that the Broncos coach was like gushing openly about the new quarterback coming in, but he was like a fan, like a 13-year-old kid playing Madden who somehow got a head coaching job. And you don't have that issue anymore. You have an adult in the building. In terms of deviation, Sean Payton said it himself. He was asked about, 9-on-7s and 7-on-7s. He goes, yeah, they didn't do that last year. It's not how we did things in New Orleans. We're going to correct that. Playing starters in the preseason, phase one of the offseason program, he pretty much took shot after shot after shot subtly at Hackett's practices, and he's going to do everything different.
He did. Real quick, shifting gears, Michaela Israel, give our best to the little man, to Cooper. She's saying, and I agree with this sentiment wholeheartedly, she says, oh, yes, I'm pumped about the Nuggets game, right? I have about as much disdain for the Lakers as I do the Raiders. Nothing would taste sweeter than a sweep. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I absolutely loathe the Lakers. I cannot stand them. That's a good comparison in a mixed sports comparison, so to speak. David Hicks, really appreciate the kind words on Facebook, my friend. Means a lot to us. Big Earn, by the way, wanted to give a shout out, seeing Big Earn in the chat. Great to have you, big dog. Eddie, this is an interesting topic. He says Stearns is going to have to improve tremendously in tackling because his tackling is terrible. Get excited to see him make a pass breakup. Then what the frick when he misses an easy tackle? I feel you on that. But you know who the king is of missed tackles? One Kareem Jackson, for what it's worth. So that's something, what did Vic Fangio call it, Zach? Tackling?
Non-negotiable.
Turns out it was negotiable, right? Turns out it was a fungible requisite, so to speak.
So was dying by inches. But the thing is with coaching, good coaching, and Christian Parker is one of the best secondary coaches in the NFL, you improve tackling. And also with repetition, him getting more game action. That's why Stearns has to play. If that's your biggest criticism of Kaden, then he will clean that up by just being on the field. It's not a reason not to play him, though, and go with a 35-year-old dinosaur, relatively speaking, in KJ.
The other thing to remember about Kareem, even though, like I said, I still will be expecting him to start, but we'll see what happens. But he was, we laugh about PFF grades and whatnot. All right. They are oftentimes arbitrary, but he was, for whatever that's worth, the 52nd ranked safety in the NFL last year, according to PFF's grading system. So Sam Bam, thanks, bro. Number 2 tonight. You are Prince. So the Jets will likely start off 1-5. Their first 6 games are rough, including the Broncos. Wouldn't surprise me one bit, Zach.
I have it pulled up right now. You intrigued me, and you never told any lies, Sam, because they start off against Buffalo, and they play the Cowboys and the Patriots, and then Kansas City, and then the Broncos, and then the Eagles before their bye week. That is a pretty tough start to their year. And
oh man,
Aaron Rodgers or not, that defense or not, I don't know about 1-5, but they're going to struggle, I think, to get to 500.
Talk about the refiner's fire right out of the gates, man. They're getting it put to them. So interesting stuff. Thank you, Sam. We have also here Brent P jumping in with just such a generous super chat. Thank you, Brent. Top ropes.
Thank you, Brent. Wow.
2 nights in a row. So thank you, big dog. He says, evening, Chad and Zach. I don't trust VJ to shut down top teams, but with Sean Payton, do you think VJ does better than he did in Arizona? MHH for life. Again, thank you, Brent. Dude, seriously, means the world to us. Some refresher here on VJ in Arizona. Well, VJ is a defensive coordinator. What was he in Miami, Zach? He finished with the mid-20s ranked defense.
I think it was 28.
The Broncos still hired him because they had their mind on, they wanted to hire him first as defensive coordinator under Gary Kubiak, but the Bengals blocked him, wouldn't let him leave as a secondary coach, which was really lame because in the NFL, man, it's just the way how are you going to expect coaches to ever want to come to Cincinnati when you won't let a position coach higher up, granted outside your team, but for a promotion? Either way, they said no. So he eventually ends up in Miami, as Zach said, low 20s as a coordinator for that defense. Then you cut to his time in Arizona. That first year, was it the first year, Zach, or the second year? The highest the Cardinals ranked as a defense, total defense, was 11th 1 year. So he got within sniffing distance of top 10. He had one other decently ranked season. I want to say it was like 13th off the top of my head. And then from there, it kind of started going south. So with that, Zach, being the stage set, what's your answer here for Brent?
Yeah, he's never been a top 5 or top 10 DC, and that's why I pushed so hard. You mentioned other names that were candidates for the job. That's why I wanted Rex Ryan, because say what you want about his personality, the man knows how to coach a defense, and I was salivating thinking what he can do with this group of players. The thing is, though, this is why, again, coaching is so important, and the Sean Payton hire was so crucial. He will not let the defense slip. Even if VJ's hard and he doesn't maximize the talent and they slip to, 12th, 13th, the median for VJ, Sean will whip them back into shape. He's not going to call plays, but in New Orleans, that defense played hard every single game for Sean Payton. I'm not even talking about the Greg Williams Bounty Gate thing. I am talking hard, fighting it all, leaving it all out there for 60 minutes every single Sunday. The opponent didn't matter. Nothing mattered. They gave their all. There's no quit in them. They had a bunch of dog in them. These are qualities, Chad. I bring it up because they haven't had that since Wade Phillips. And you can span 3 different defensive coaches now. They have not had that type of tenacity that someone like Sean Payton demands in his defense, even though it's not his side of the ball. So I do worry about VJ a little bit, but with Sean in town, you will not worry too much about, finishing 20th overall, for example.
In yards per game, in his one season as a defensive coordinator in Denver, Ejiro Evero finished top 10, 7th. Now, defenses usually get measured either in total yards or in points. So in yards, they finished 7th, the Broncos under Evero. And then in points, let me find it here, points per game, 14th. So just outside, basically still in the top half of the league, though. For what it's worth, I only bring that up because it gives you context to, and I think to the VJ situation, and I think there's a little something to be said for Ejiro Evero, who, and this isn't to take anything away from him, but Vic Fangio had a nice little foundation laid for him defensively, both with the personnel that was acquired to fit that scheme, and then also just, Vic Fangio's defense in Denver did have some warts. But it was definitely not the problem. It was the tip of the spear, unfortunately. That's what it was for Denver while he was here. And it's hard to know at this stage, Zach, how much of Ejiro Evero's success last year was based on some of the vestiges of what Fangio and George Payton and Elway a little bit too had built, or if it was the sweat off his own brow. I'm a little bit more inclined to think it was the latter, sweat off his own brow, because They did finish second on third down and seventh in the red zone. So that takes some tactical wherewithal, right? On not only in your game prep and your game planning, but calling the right things in the moment when the chips are down in these games. Mike, love you, bro.
Thank you, Michael, as always. What gives me comfort about VJ to an extent that if he bombs, Sean Payton's calling the shots. And I think if the one-year audition, let's say, doesn't go well, I don't think Payton would have any problem replacing VJ and picking another defensive coordinator. And we know the Waltons and the Penners have no issue swallowing that contract, eating that money if Sean Payton determines that's the way to go. So it's a win-win situation. Either VJ steps it up and they field a top 10 defense, which talent alone, Chad, say what you want about VJ. They are a top 10 unit on paper on talent alone. And if he doesn't, if they slip, if they're the reason why in a bizarro universe, the defense is the reason why they're losing and not the offense, I don't think Sean would have any qualms about replacing him after one season.
Phil asking, do you think the Broncos are going to keep 5? I think he means to say inside linebackers this year. Usually, Zach, the roster math shakes out, depending on the special teams, division of labor, etc. Usually they go heavy on edge and somewhat lighter on inside linebacker, just depending on the year, but more often than not. So usually they carry 4. Could they carry 5 this year? Because you've got Josie Jewell, Alex Singleton reprising their role as starters, to end the season anyway. You've got, of course, 3rd-round pick, highest drafted linebacker since DJ Williams in Denver anyway, Drew Sanders. You've got Jonas Griffith, who I'm not ready to throw in the towel on him. He showed me enough that, and with that injury last year, I still think there's some there. And even Justin Sternad. Trying to think who else I can pull up the roster, but your answer for Phil.
I think Ray Wilborn is in there, some bottom of the roster inside linebacker. 5 would be the maximum, and that 5th spot would probably go to Sternad, if only for his special teams prowess, but I'm okay going light. You have except for Jewell, fairly reliable players at inside linebacker. I'm really excited about Drew Sanders, and Jonas Griffith is pretty good against the pass. So I'm going to guess they keep 4 and they cut it after Jonas.
Concur. If that's how it shakes out, though, Justin Sternad might not survive his contract year, right? This is his 4th year.
I don't know how he's still here. I'm kind of surprised by that.
I am too a little bit, man. And he had his opportunities. It just doesn't seem like we've seen him that much because he missed his whole rookie year with that wrist injury that he suffered in training camp. Then when he was turned to the 2nd year, he actually showed some flashes, but when they needed him last year, oh my goodness gracious, he was atrocious. So for what that's worth, Keith saying, and it's good to see you, Keith Brugman, in the house. My concern for the defense is opponents need to put points. My concern for the defense is opponents didn't need to put up points last year. Hopefully this year is different. Zach, quickly, your reaction.
Well, they've always tried to score. I mean, offenses didn't slow up because they were facing the Broncos offense. The defense has to get credit too, because Ejiro Evero, like you mentioned, Chad, for a first-time coordinator, new system, new team, this and that, he did really good with the pieces that he had. And even by the end of the year, missing half his team on IR, it seemed like they were still fighting. So I'm not too worried. Like I said yesterday, it's a sliding scale. If the defense drops down, let's say to top 11, but the offense comes up to top 12, that's a playoff formula right there.
Gary Palmer, last one, guys, and then we are going to dip on out of here. Love to see you, as always. Second super tonight. He's saying, Zach, you hit it on the head.
Thank you, Gary. I try.
Orange Bucky, good to see you, by the way, on YouTube, my friends. A shout out from San Antonio. I'll be attending the Broncos-Packers game. Dope. We'll see you there week 7?
Mm-hmm.
Or week 8? Either way, October 22nd, week 7, Broncos-Packers, MHH meet and greet. It's going to be dope. We're going to go, but don't leave quite yet. We got a couple messages for you.
It was another fantastic installment of the MHH podcast. If you're not doing so, follow us on Twitter at the MHH pod. You can follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle, Chad at Chad and Jensen, myself at Kelberman NFL, and Scott at Scout Kennedy. If you guys want some Buckham merch or anything else in our store, check out mhhmerch.com. If you're on Facebook, check us out at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. Be sure you're liking that page and following that page. If you're on Instagram, Follow us at mile_high_huddle. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, be sure you're leaving your football priest a 5-star review for a chance to win some of that merch each and every single month. But if anything, please subscribe, like, and share this video and every video you see on the MHH channel. It really helps us grow and reach more Broncos fans just like you.
That it does, baby. That it does. Much love and respect to these great Super Chat superstars. Tonight, Brent P, Nigel Tough, Gary Palmer, Sam Bam, Divine Breaks, Troy Boer, David Kilgore, OG, David McElrath, OG. Much love and respect. And on Facebook, thank you for the star supporters. Mike Ronquillo, Phil McLaughlin, Miguel Santisteban, Lawrence Rivera. We're off for the next couple of days, but don't forget, tomorrow morning, you got Broncos for breakfast. You got Building the Broncos Tuesday night. On Wednesday, you got Mile High Insiders. And then we're back Thursday night, along with Broncos for breakfast. But Thursday night, we have our next installment of a Superstar segment. You'll have to wait and see who that is, but we look forward to that. So it'll be fun. Have a great start to your week, everybody. Much love.
An OTA start tomorrow, so we'll have plenty to break down on Thursday evening. Have a great start to your week. As Chad said, though, take care, and as always, go Broncos.